Howdy guys, and thanks for joining me. So in this video, I'm going to be chatting about the 17-70. I've had it for a couple of weeks now, and I usually shoot prime lenses, but I decided to give a zoom a chance because I haven't used it in a hot minute, and it's actually exceeded my expectations. Now, I liked pretty much everything about this lens, but I am hesitant to recommend it completely, and I'll talk more about that at the end of the video, but for now, I'm going to share my impressions along with dozens of sample photos I've taken, so let's get into it. First up, we're going to talk about what everybody cares about most, and that's going to be image quality. So for my observations, this lens is pretty good. Again, like I said, I usually shoot primes, and it's not going to be as good as a prime lens in terms of just pure sharpness and everything, but I found it to be pretty impressive. At 17mm, the widest end of the focal range, you see a good bit of drop off by the corners, but the centers are super sharp. I was pretty happy with that. And honestly, all the way down to 70mm, the entire zoom range is pretty much like that. I found that 35mm is a little bit sharper on the edges versus 17 versus 70, but by and large you're going to see amazing centers and pretty soft corners until you stop down a little bit. Thankfully, stopping down just a bit to, say F5.6 sharpens everything up, and I was pretty happy with it. Now, that being said, I don't do any complicated sharpness tests. I'm not, checking MTF graphs and photographing those strange sharpness printout thingies. I just go out and use the lens, take pictures, and look at the images and see if they look good to my eyes. And this, definitely pretty happy with it. I'd say it's the second best zoom lens I've used on APS-C. Again, more on that later. That being said, there are two issues I want to make light of. So first, the lens has some pretty insane distortion at 17mm. These days it's super easy to correct distortion in Lightroom or Photoshop, so it's just a single click. It hasn't been problematic for me. It might bend straight lines a little bit when taking like architecture shots, but you'll see I've been posting a lot of architecture shots in this video anyways, and it hasn't been a huge problem for me. When you zoom in a little bit, even 35mm and then down to 70 obviously, the distortion mostly goes away, and I'd say it's not even an issue. Now, that is a bit more of an issue is the vignetting. Now, usually I don't care much about vignetting on lenses. I do like a light vignette, especially on center focus subjects like portraits and that sort of thing. I don't mind the slight darkening on the edge of the frame. With this lens, I did end up using it inside quite a bit, making use of that f2.8 aperture. And I found that when correcting vignette in post-processing, it really brought out a lot of noise when I was shooting inside because the very extreme edges of the frame are so much darker than the centers, and I had to do a lot of manual noise processing to get rid of it. It's not a huge issue, honestly, but I put some samples up on the screen here from my editing software so you can kind of see how impactful the vignetting actually is on this lens. Do keep in mind it of course pretty much completely vanishes when you stop down just a little bit. It's only an issue at f2.8 I'd say. Now as far as bokeh goes, it looks pretty decent. This isn't going to be like a dedicated portrait lens for example, but I find the out of focus parts of an image look pretty clean. The bokeh itself is a little bit shaky and not super creamy and smooth, but again, this is a very versatile lens. You can't expect the same kind of bokeh that's going to come out of like an f1.8 portrait lens, for example. So I'm pretty happy with it. So yeah, general image quality, pretty good. This isn't going to be like a prime lens again, but I'd say it's definitely up there in terms of zoom lenses I've used. Like I'm shooting this with the 16 to 50mm kit lens, and this little kit lens does not compare to the 17 to 70. Like this thing is on a different tier as far as zooms go. With this lens though, if there was anything I had to absolutely complain about, it would definitely be the size. I mean, this thing is monstrous. It's a 17 to 70 f2.8. I mean, honestly, I'm surprised it's not even bigger. It's also pretty heavy. It's definitely not going to be as heavy as like a GM series lens, for example, or something that's, f1.2 or something like that. But I found when out shooting in the city, I definitely had to throw it in my bag a few times because my wrist was just cramping up trying to carry this thing. I mean, even on a tiny body like the A6000 or the ZVE10, it feels pretty front heavy and it's massive. A lot of that heavy weight though does come from the build quality. Like this is not a cheaply made lens. Like it doesn't feel flimsy, it doesn't feel hollow when you knock on it. It feels heavy duty, it feels strong, like it feels like you might be able to drop this thing. You're not going to see me do that in this video. And if I'm not mistaken, it also has slight weather resistance. It has a gasket around the lens mount here, and I think some internal seals. I wasn't able to test it. I typically try not to bring my lenses out into bad weather if I can avoid it. And we've also had a strangely good streak of nice weather here in southeast Wisconsin. It's just been like sunny and beautiful every single day. So I haven't had a great chance to take this out into anything too intense. And then zooming itself feels pretty good. It's very nicely dampened. It doesn't feel too stiff on any point. I saw some reviewers online saying that between 35 and 70 it felt too stiff. That has not been my observation. Maybe I have like a newer version of the lens or something like that. But zooming is super smooth and it's very concise. I found I was usually able to lock in the focal length that I was looking for without even having to look down at the lens, look at the markings here. It just feels great. And then as far as autofocus goes, it's like pretty much any other new lens. It's super fast, super reliable. You know, a Sony lens might come out slightly ahead of it, but it's such a minor difference, especially on a body like the ZV-E10, which has great autofocus anyways. I have no complaints. Tracking was amazing. IAF is amazing. No problems, no hunting. I shot a lot inside, like I said, this weekend, and I didn't have any issues with missed focus or anything like that. For my fellow video shooters, do know that there's pretty much no focus breathing, so it makes it great for video. You're not going to have a bunch of crazy breathing and whatnot. And something I like a lot about this lens is the fact that it has image stabilization built in. I still shoot with a body, the ZV-E10 and the A6000, that do not have in-body image stabilization, so it's always so nice when I get a lens that has stabilization in it. So you can use this for handheld video, you know, even if you don't have IBIS. I put up a stabilization test on the screen here of me just, you know, wandering around my apartment, hitting the camera in my hand. No tripod, no gimbal, no monopod, nothing like that. You'll see how good it is. Okay, so the 17-70 is pretty fantastic, but the entire time I was using it, I just kept asking myself, like, why am I not just using the Sigma 18-50 instead? The Sigma 18-50, you lose, you know, 20mm versus the 17-70. But it's so much more compact and lightweight, and it's also a good bit cheaper, and has slightly better image quality. For me personally, I prefer having a more compact kit. I find I go out to shoot more, I take my camera out of my bag more often. When I have a huge heavy lens like this, I don't even want to go outside with it. So if you want to learn more about the Sigma, I'll link a video up above there. I did a complete review on it, I think like last year or something like that. Definitely my personal preference. That being said, if you need the image stabilization and the extra 20mm of range on the telephoto end, and you just don't care about having a massive lens, the Tamron 17-70 is it. I mean, this lens, besides being huge, that was my only complaint with it. This thing is fantastic, top notch. So, I'll drop base in the description if you want to check them out. They are affiliate links, so if you click through to them, I'll get a tiny commission at no extra cost, so thanks in advance. And I'll just leave you with a link to the Sigma 18-50 here at the end if you want to, you know, consider that and save yourself from carrying this giant monster of a lens. Thanks for watching, guys, and let me know what you end up buying in the comments. I'm curious.